I mean, I'd always wanted to sign the Rolling Stones. I kept trying.
That must have been so exciting when you finally did that.
That was a great day.
Yeah, that must have been a great day.
And I'd never really smoked. And Keith Richards taught me to roll a joint on the day that we signed the Rolling Stones. Yeah, I was interested as a sort of young 14, 15-year-old about what was going on around the world. And I was inquisitive. And the Vietnamese War was raging. And it seemed to me, as it seemed to a lot of young people, a very unjust war, as most wars actually turn out to be. And I, like a lot of other people, wanted to campaign to try to stop it. There was no young person's magazine at the time. And quite strange, because I'm dyslexic, that I should feel that I can... who's dyslexic in this room? all the best people in the world are dyslexic. Sorry to the rest of you, but anyway. Yeah, so being dyslexic, thinking that I could be an editor of a magazine, but anyway, I thought I could give it a shot, and so I decided to leave school and start a magazine a campaigning magazine to try to reform education and try to tackle issues like things like the Vietnamese War and the Biafran War and other wars that were going on at the time. I never thought I was becoming an entrepreneur. I don't think the word entrepreneur actually existed 50 years ago. In Britain, all businesses were run by governments, really. British Gas, right. British Coal, British Telecom, British Airways. And so the word entrepreneur didn't really exist. But in starting this magazine, I had to make sure it survived. I didn't have any money, so I had to worry about printing and paper manufacturing and distribution and selling it, and that started taking up quite a lot of time. And the word survival was very important, because in those days you couldn't raise money to start your businesses. You had to sort of try to
start them.
Fund them from people wanting to buy advertising or buying copies of your magazine. And so I learned the art of being an entrepreneur by, in the jungle, trying to survive. And the magazine became my education, and it was a lot of fun, and one thing led on to another. Well, first of all, you have to come up with the name of a brand, and as a 15, 16-year-old, I was sitting around in a basement, and one of the girls who was sitting there with me said, "Well, we're all virgins," and laughed hysterically, and said, "Why don't you call it Virgin?" And the only other name we had was Slip Disc Records,
you chose well.
Slip Disc Airlines may not have worked well. Anyway, we went for Virgin. It took us 4 years for the registry office to let us register it. They claimed it was rude, and after 3 or 4 years, I got the dictionary out and I wrote at them a letter and said, "Look, the English dictionary says that virgin is the opposite of rude. It's pure, it's untouched, it's unblemished, it's everything that's perfect." And finally, they
relented.
They gave in, and I'm not sure how pure it was after we'd had it for a few years, but anyway, but we then. So the music business just simply came about, again, a bit by accident. a young lad of 15 brought me a tape, and I loved the music. And he said that no record company would put the music out. So I said, well, look, let me go and try a few record companies myself. And after going around 8 record companies and being turned down, I thought, screw it, let's do it. We'll start a record company. And Virgin Records was then born, and this 15-year-old's album was called Tubular Bells, and it was just music, no vocals, but it outsold Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. So I mean, it was a big hit at the time.
Big record, yeah.
And we managed to get The Exorcist to use it as their soundtrack, and it did well, and that really started building what became the biggest independent record company in the world. And I mean, I'd always wanted to sign the Rolling Stones. I kept trying.
That must have been so exciting when you finally did that.
That was a great day.
Yeah, that must have been a great day. I mean, it's a great day to go see the Rolling Stones, but to actually sign
it was brilliant. And I'd never really smoked. And Keith Richards taught me to roll a joint on the day that we signed the Rolling Stones. And I'm hopeless at it ever since. Well, once again, with the magazine, I started it out of a mission not to make money. With the record company, I started it to get music heard that other people weren't putting out. With the airline, I mean, one or two of you in this room would have heard this story, but it's a good story, so I'm going to tell it again. I was 28 years old. I was trying to get to the Virgin Islands. There was a gorgeous woman waiting for me. It was 6 in the evening. I hadn't been home for 3 weeks, and the American Airlines decide that they're going to bump the flight because they didn't have enough passengers. So I thought, damn it, I'm going to get there somehow or another. So I went to the back of the airport. I hired a plane and hoped my credit card wouldn't bounce. And I borrowed a blackboard and I wrote Virgin Airlines one way, $39 to the BVI. And I went out to all the people who got bumped, and I filled up my first plane. So when we got to the BVI, actually I better skip that part of the story. The next morning, with a big smile on my face, I rang up Boeing, and I said, could I talk to your sales department? And
I'd like to buy a 737.
And I was put through to this lovely man called R.J. Wilson, who I'll always remember. And he took the phone call, and I said, do you have any second-hand 747s for sale? And he said, well, yes, we do. Could you tell me who you are? And I said, my name's Richard Branson. I have a record company called Virgin. We have Janet Jackson, we had the Rolling Stones, we had the Sex Pistols. And he said, well, what do you want a 747 for? So I said, well, airlines are not that well run, and I think we could start an airline that could give British Airways a run for their money. And there was a long pause, and then I was just very lucky it was him on the other end of the phone call. Once I got to know him later, I realized how lucky I was. Anyway, there was a long pause, and he said, Richard, that's what you said your name was, Richard? Yeah. He said, look, I'll come and see you, he said, but obviously you're going to have to change the name of your company. I mean, nobody would expect an airline with the name Virgin to go the whole way.
That's a good one. I bet you've used that before.
So anyway, he came. We got our 747. I'm going to give one bit of useful business advice. So you can imagine the people who were running the record company with me got in a complete panic when I told them that we were moving into the airline business, and so I had to convince them that the airline wasn't going to bring the record company down, and obviously the most important thing in business is protecting the downside, and so the most important part of the negotiation with Boeing was to persuade them that if the airline didn't work out, as I thought it would, that we could hand the plane back at the end of the first year. And they actually agreed on that. I mean, they wanted to see a competitor to be so they could sell,
sell more planes.
They could sell planes to that competitor, and also, sharpen what the price that they got from British Airways. So they agreed, and at the end of that year, people loved Virgin Atlantic. And they sold us 2 more, and the rest is history, as they say. That was 35 years ago.
Yeah. Extraordinary.
Yeah, I think we set up 3 airlines: Virgin Australia,
right,
Virgin America, and Virgin Atlantic, and they've all been very successful. And they've been successful, I think, most businesses are successful because of the people, but the people only excel if you give them the tools to do a great job, and if they feel loved.
Sure.
And so I think, what was critical in Virgin Atlantic was that every single little detail was right. So we were the first airline to introduce seat-back videos, and 5 years before British Airways. And kids who travelled on Virgin would not let their parents travel on any other airline because
sure,
they wanted seat-back videos. And we had stand-up bars for upper-class passengers, and I'm sure lots of romances started at our
upper-class
bars. And we're not the kind of airline that banged on lavatory doors either. So anyway, we were a fun airline. It's taking 800, in our case, 800 wonderful engineers and technicians working day and night in the Mojave Desert, which isn't the most salubrious place to work. But they're all completely committed to what they're doing. It's taking another couple of hundred engineers in Long Beach working up.
Long Beach?
Working very hard to get our large rocket launched to put small satellites up, and it's taken sort of 12 years hard work. So this is this is really a really long-term investment. And what Virgin Galactic is trying to do is slightly different from what Elon is trying to do. What Elon achieved last week was absolutely breathtaking. What we're building is spaceships shaped like spaceships, and also reminiscent of airplanes as well.
Right.
With the idea that people will be able to fly into space on a spaceship, and then come back into Earth and land in the same spaceship, and hopefully one day we can develop it from spaceships going to space to point-to-point travel, and other quite exciting things which we got planned. So it's been a long haul. We've had I think all three companies that have been working on this have had tears as well as great moments. This year we think we're finally there, and over the next few months, we hope it'll be Virgin Galactic's turn for the world to marvel, and for all our team to finally achieve everything they set out to achieve. One of the biggest technical challenges is coming back into into Earth's orbit, and that's been the most dangerous time in past space expeditions. Burt Rutan was the genius that developed the mechanism on Virgin Galactic, which effectively turns it into a giant shuttlecock, and it comes back into the Earth's atmosphere just like a shuttlecock. So it slows itself up. Then it reforms again as a spaceship and comes into land. It's a magnificent to see the spaceship folding into a shuttlecock and then coming back out again. Anyway, that's one of many challenges. I mean, with our small Earth, with Virgin Orbit, what we're trying to do is put up with OneWeb, which our partners, 2,000 satellites around the Earth, connecting the billions of people who are not connected at all in remote parts of Bali or Africa and so on, and even remote parts of America. And there, what we've actually done is we've taken Virgin Atlantic, one of the very early Virgin Atlantic 747s, and we're going to fly it up to 50,000 feet attached to the wing of a 747. And then we're going to drop it from a 747, and it's going to fire and go into space from there. So it's quite fun, actually, that we were able just to transfer a 747 from Virgin Atlantic to our space program, and it's now ready, hopefully mid this year to start operation. I think a good leader has to be a really good listener, and I'm listening to fascinating people all the time, not famous people, just everybody has some expertise in something in life, and I get excited by so many new things. I mean, geothermal, for instance.
Not everybody gets excited about geothermal.
Okay.
But that's
if you're worried about climate change, you get excited,
should be excited about geothermal. Absolutely.
No, but I just recently have come across some geothermal technology that for the regions of the Caribbean, which I happen to live in, and for places all the way around the center of the Earth, if you drill down 3,000 feet. You come across incredible heat, and that heat, if you can bring it up to the Earth's surface, it works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it uses up a tiny amount of space compared to solar or wind, which are both equally very good technologies, but you need more space for them. I don't know. I mean, I'm just very lucky. I mean, my mind is open all the time. We've just Virgin Hyperloop One. I've just come back from Dubai, where they are incredibly excited by the possibilities of Virgin Hyperloop One. I'm off to India on Sunday to talk to the Indians about it. It will be transformative, I think.
Yes.
Connecting airports, connecting cities, and that's a new technology. We've got a test run in the outside Las Vegas, which you've been to, And it's just lovely being at the birth of a new technology. Very, very exciting. No, it's a good question. I mean, there are so many problems in this world, and trying to prioritize, which problems to solve and which you just feel you don't have the energy for or the resources for is a really tough one. Which is why we're trying to get, every single business in this room, even if you're a really small business. I love this kid at whatever it was, 8, coming up to me and pitching me earlier in the corridor, and giving me one of his products. He shouldn't give away the products. He must sell them. Anyway,
you're gonna have trouble getting out of here now that someone knows that you were pitched in the corridor.
But I think that if every single person in this room can adopt at least one problem, and if it's just trying to find a roof over the person you keep walking by who's sleeping in the street every day, going to your office, something, but just a problem in this world. I think every single person in this room will feel that much better for it, in 50 years' time when they've looked back on their life and their careers. And obviously, as businesses get bigger, you can adopt bigger and bigger and bigger problems. Sure. And you can use your entrepreneurial skills, your resources, your teams to take on some of the really big problems of this world. And I think we cannot let government try to sort the problems of the world out. They haven't got the entrepreneurial skills generally to do so. And it's great fun. I mean, we have something called Audacious Ideas Gathering on Necker every year, where we get some of the more successful people together, and we get throughout the year with TED, we get maybe 300 organizations to pitch, and then we choose 10 of the most important things in the world to try to resolve. And then we go out to try to resolve them every year. It could be a particular kind of blindness in Africa. It could be, how do we sort out methane leaks around the world? And, can we use satellites to spot them and then alert the companies to these methane leaks, and so on. So as your businesses get more successful, you become more entrepreneurially aware as to how to look at situations in this world, then you get into a position where you can actually start tackling some of the bigger issues.